Every blow on my body will be a final nail in the coffin of British Empire.
This was a famous statement made by Lala Lajpat Rai after being attacked during a protest against British rule. But years before that moment, Lajpat Rai was fighting another battle, not with a police baton, but with a book. In 1927, an American journalist, Katherine Mayo, wrote a book called Mother India, which created a storm around the world. Her argument was simple. India was socially backward, India was poor, India was uneducated, and therefore, according to her, India was not capable of having its own government, self-government, and the only solution was the British rule. Now imagine India in 1920s. A large part of country was controlled by British for generations. Obviously, there was poverty, India was socially backward, and education level was low. But Lala Lajpat Rai asks a different question. Are these problems the proof that the Indians were incapable of governing themselves, or are they the result of the system that governed India? This question became the foundation of his book Unhappy India. In today's video, let's look at his arguments. One of Katherine Mayo's argument was that Indians lacked education and therefore could not govern themselves. Now, Lala Lajpat Rai did not deny the reality. Yes, Indians were low in education, but he asked a simple question. Who had been ruling India while this situation continued? The British claimed that they were on a civilizing mission. They presented themselves as the bringers of modern progress, education, and development. Rai's argument was, if British rule existed to develop India, then why after so many decades of administration, education was limited to a small section of society and not to all? According to him, the problem was not that the Indians were incapable of learning. The problem was the colonial policies had never prioritized educating people. And then, ironically, the lack of education was used as an argument. The Indians are not educated, hence they cannot govern themselves. This was perhaps Katherine Mayo's strongest attack. In her book, she described India as a society suffering from certain social evils such as child marriage, poor sanitation, problems faced by women, and caste discrimination. Again, Lajpat Rai did not pretend as if these problems did not exist. He accepted that India needed social reform. But his criticism was about the way Mayo presented these issues in her book. According to him, she took the real problems, exaggerated them, and generalized them, and presented them as the proof that an entire civilization is incapable of self-governing. His larger point was, every society has social problems. The existence of social problems does not mean a society is incapable of self-governing. For example, British itself had experienced poverty, child labor, terrible working conditions, and overcrowded industrial cities during Industrial Revolution. But nobody argued because Britain has social problems, Britain should be ruled by another country. Then why should India be judged differently? For Lajpat Rai, reform was necessary, but it should come from within Indian society. He pointed towards movements like Arya Samaj, which were trying to reform Hindu society, challenge social evils, and improve education. His argument was, a society should have the freedom to fix its own problems. The biggest criticism of India was poverty. Again, Lajpat Rai did not deny it. He accepted the reality. India was devastated by famine, millions struggled to survive, and life expectancy was really low. But Rai believed that Katherine Mayo asked the wrong question. The question should not be why Indians are poor. The question should be what made Indians poor. For Lajpat Rai, poverty was not evidence that Indians were unable to develop. Poverty was the result of the economic system created under colonial rule. And this brings us to the most important argument, the drain theory. Lajpat Rai's economic argument was based on the famous drain theory by Dadabhai Naoroji. The idea was this: when British first arrived in India, they came as traders through East India Company. They wanted Indian products such as textiles and other goods. And to buy these products, they had to pay with gold or silver, which is also known as bullion. But after Battle of Plassey in 1757, everything changed. They were no more traders, they became rulers. They became a political power, and they started collecting taxes from Indians. And according to Rai, the problem was that the revenue generated was mostly used for the British interests. So the tax money was spent on buying Indian products, money was spent on British officials' salary, pensions, administrative costs, and the profits which they earned in India eventually flowed back to Britain. Rai argued that when wealth constantly leaves an economy, the consequences are very serious. There is less investment, less industrial growth, and less economic opportunities, and because of which the poverty sustains. For him, India's poverty was not a proof of India's failure, but a consequence of colonial economic policies. It's up to you whether you completely agree with his arguments or not, but the book Unhappy India raises an important historical question. When we look at a country's problems such as poverty, lack of education, social issues, do we only look at the condition itself, or do we ask how did that condition came into existence? This is what makes Unhappy India interesting. It was not simply a reply to Katherine Mayo's Mother India, but it was Rai's attempt to change the way people looked at India, not as a society defined by its problems, but as a society whose problems had a history.